I first heard about the cabin because an old magazine piece called it the worst thing up here. The place sat on the edge of a lake where the trees pressed close, a summer house people used for quiet weekends. The name stuck with me. Blisswood, Good Hart, a remote kind of peace. When I finally went up there, years later, the air still felt the way a house feels after a secret has been left inside it too long. The family who owned it, a husband, a wife, and their 4 kids, were the sort of people who stacked wrapped presents on a table and left a camcorder out to catch the smiles. They were visiting for summer, and according to neighbors, the cabin was alive with ordinary noise until the night they disappeared from the world. That ordinary noise is what makes the silence after so much worse. Neighbors later told investigators they'd heard gunshots one night, then nothing. No one came for a long time. The truth, when it came, was almost unbelievable. The family had been killed the same night, their bodies left inside the locked house for nearly a month. Imagine a house where the clocks keep running and breakfast gets cold and nobody notices. The man who finally went inside did so because something smelled wrong at a bridge party. The women there said the air had turned sour. He walked to the locked front door, opened it, and found the first body by the entryway. He thought he'd found an animal at first until he saw more. That slow, accidental discovery is the kind of thing that haunts entire towns. It changes the way neighbors look at one another. The details the press printed were clinical: calibers, autopsies, a hammer found at the scene. But the part I remember is smaller. A blanket half draped over a couch, a child's chair there as if someone had just stepped away. The official words tried to explain what happened, but they never erased the image of a room that won't return to being ordinary. Detectives focused on a man who had worked for the father, someone who knew the family's routines. He was a former Marine, had access to weapons, and people said the company books had been rifled. Investigators built a case from footprints, shell casings, and little threads that tied him to the scene. But a case built from threads is still fragile, especially if one of the threads snaps. Years later, when that prime suspect killed himself before he could be indicted, people in town said it felt like the case closed with a slammed book but no final page. Some felt relief, others felt cheated. The suspect's death left questions that no stack of files could answer. Why leave the door unlocked? Why not tell anyone? And who else might know and never speak? The weirdest part, the thing that made the story sit like a stone in my stomach, is the image of a camcorder left running. The tape, when it was reviewed, didn't show a family laughing and playing. It showed the terrible ordinariness of intruders rifling through gifts, tugging at drawers, and moving with a boredom that made what they did more frightening. There's a terror in that normalness. People in Good Hart remember the way the resort changed that summer. Neighbors closed doors they'd never closed before. Summer parties grew small, and the police kept coming back to comb for evidence. A detective once told a reporter that the case had enough circumstantial evidence that many locals felt certain of the answer. But certainty and a court are different things. The law wants more than community conviction. It wants proof you can put in a box. Over the decades, the story turned into a kind of warning. Don't assume a locked cabin is safe. Don't ignore a silence that persists. Books and anniversary pieces revisited the case, calling the suspect the prime one and pointing to motive and access. And people who grew up in that county still say the name in quiet, like something that never quite left the air. I've been to a lot of closed places, shuttered houses, abandoned factories, and each one has its own smell of loss. The Robison place smells like cedar and salt, and the faint chemical tang of evidence. If you walk around the outside now and listen, the lake laps like it always did, indifferent. But I still picture the small domestic things: a towel left over a chair, an unfinished map spread across a table. Tiny proofs that a life was inside and then wasn't. The case is officially unresolved in the way that matters. No final verdict that everyone accepts. No single chapter that ties it all up. For a small town that summer, the crime rewired what felt safe. And for the rest of us who read the paper or watched the anniversary pieces, it's a reminder that some of the scariest stories are the ones that begin in the ordinary and end by slowly taking it away.